Guess who's back? Back again. Maggie's back. Shady Meg is back. Hoping you'll tell a friend. Guys, I'm back and I'm ready to talk. Let's talk about Meghan's podcast because boy, has that been in the news lately and I have lots to say about that. So this is my second video in the series. Don't worry if you didn't see the other one. That's okay. You found me now. But do check out my other one. I talk all about the Revenge book by Tom Bower and really deep dive that. So check that out. But let's jump in and talk about, I had so many requests to talk about the podcast, Archetypes. 2 episodes have come out. The first one with Serena Williams and the second one with Mariah Carey. And can I just say the reviews are hilarious. Definitely spend an hour or 10 Googling that and taking a look. I've saved some of my favorite reviews here and marked the publications they're from, so I do encourage you to go take a look. But yeah, it's being slammed pretty good. A lot about her narcissism, which, hello, we all kind of knew that, and making it about me, which I will go into, but I don't know, these reviews really got me laughing pretty good. And that's honestly what piqued my interest about the podcast, is because I thought, could it be this bad? You guys, it's this bad. I gotta give credit to my favorite quote I've found so far. This quote coming from Hillary Rose at the Times. In hindsight, I should have beaten myself unconscious an hour ago with a copy of Finding Freedom. Instead, I've listened to 57 minutes, 28 seconds of Meghan Markle's syrupy California drawl while rocking back and forth and moaning softly under my breath. And if we know anything at all about Maggie, which we learned from that Tom Bower book, she sure does like to read press about herself, so she can't be having a good time with this. So I'd like to dive in and talk about some of the claims in the podcast, including that fire. Fire? Smoke. My bad. You guys, so much has come out about this. It is reported that, well, first of all, did you see the actual quote from her? She talks about going to South Africa and having to immediately drop off Archie, and called the place she was staying a quote-unquote housing unit, which is kind of offensive, no? And turns out this is the housing unit they were staying at. I guess we have different definitions of what that means. This is their housing unit. There was a heater in question. You can read the whole tale of events. I'm sure you've heard it by now. She claims there was a fire in the nursery, and she was still expected to go and do these events afterwards. Well, not so fast. People that were there at the time are giving different accounts of the story, saying there was an incident with a heater. It was very minor. There was just smoke, no fire, no, trucks were having to be called to put anything out. So totally different story than what's being reported. Again, here's the article claiming that it was smoke and not fire. Now, thank goodness, in either telling of the story, whoever you choose to believe, Archie was nowhere near the smoke, the fire, the blaze, whatever you want to consider it, the wind. Luckily, baby Archie was nowhere near, so that's good. But I would like to call your attention to something that's been bugging me, which is, she says, how dare they? The royal family made them continue on at these engagements. Okay. I'd like to call your attention back to 2012. Remember back then? Holy crap, has it been 10 years? Kate Middleton was on a tour through Malaysia when a Danish photography severely invaded her privacy, and, well, long story short, it involved snapping nude photos of her when I believe she was sunbathing, and they had a long angle lens, something like that. And she had to deal with it. She couldn't just leave. She couldn't just stop the engagement. She had to continue on while these photos were being published and all the press were talking about it. So suck it up, Buttercup, part of the job. So let's talk about what this podcast really is. It seems to just be an excuse to take more jabs at the royal family. So the media is calling it a 12-week war waged against the royal family. And that's exactly what it seems to be. P.S. I love that she talks about wanting to get away, and yet she still refers to herself as Duchess of Sussex in the podcast. Interesting, right? She thought it was normal to be ambitious. She talks about being ambitious, but then she talks about, the royal family looked down upon it. It wasn't a thing that they allowed us to do. It was seen as negativity. Who cares? So all these people have written about how wrong that is and how we have to think about how ambitious Diana was considered. Think about that. there's nothing wrong with being ambitious, and I don't think it's used in a negative connotation. I just think it's more of herself painting herself as a victim. By the way, I have to just say, allow myself to introduce myself. Hopefully you know what I'm talking about there, but that's what just jumped into my head as I said that. And since we're talking myself, aka me again, it seems like the perfect time to segue into, well, Meghan. Apparently, the main criticism that this podcast is getting is that it's, well, all about herself. She's pushed Harry aside and anybody who comes on her show and just wants to make it about her. Again, a theme I saw over and over is that the interview with Serena Williams, you have this champion there. You have the chance to talk to her about ambition, but instead, there's not many questions thrown at her. Instead, it's more about making it about Meghan and talking about herself. Big shocker, right? I'm trying. I wanted to see if there's anything good about this podcast, but yeah, it doesn't appear so. I have not actually listened to the Mariah Carey one. I'm very curious if you have. What were your thoughts on that? I'm sure there's a lot going on there. I read some of the excerpts and it frankly made me want to bang my head against the wall. So there's that. But again, here's an article talking about where she had the chance to talk about Serena's interesting life, but instead Meghan chose to make it, well, about her absolute favorite subject. P.S. If you read that book by Tom Bauer, which again, watch my breakdown on that, there was a section in the book where Serena actually talks about more being an acquaintance of Meghan's rather than a friend. Now, I do believe they have become friends over time, because why else would Williams be on her podcast? But I just found that really funny, coming on the heels of that book and then seeing this. Her first guest was Serena Williams. Okay, so that's about what I got on the podcast. I do have to take a time out here and talk about The Cut. Do you know what I'm talking about? Is it The Cut? Yeah, The Cut magazine. Meghan was on it, and hello, do we see any similarities here? Anybody think this looks familiar? Because that's all I could think about when I saw it. Weird, right? But so she was on The Cut magazine. I've never heard of it before, but what's fascinating here is she tells a very detailed story about going in 2019 to the London premiere of the live-action version of The Lion King. And she specifically talked to a cast member from South Africa who pulled her aside and said that when she married into the family, they rejoiced in the street like they did for Nelson Mandela. Well, here's what's interesting about that. Shocker. This is the only gentleman from South Africa in the production, and his name is Dr. John Canny. I hope I'm saying his name right. He says he had no such conversation, that he doesn't know what she's talking about, and that even in South Africa, the wedding was no big deal. He says he can't even tell you now what month she married or what year. So again, I just find it fascinating. Anytime she tells these detailed stories, people come out of the woodwork to say, no, doesn't make any sense. No fire, just smoke. Nobody rejoiced in the streets like you seem to think. I don't know. It's just the wildest thing. Like, this stuff can be checked, right? Like, why tell it? But again, I think it's just further proof of, I don't know, her being full of herself. But anyway, so with that said, are you listening to the podcast? Will you be listening to the podcast? Does this very dramatic picture of Meghan convince you to listen to the podcast? I'm guessing probably not. All right, guys, that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you want to see more of my stuff, check out my Patreon, patreon.com/Real Housewives Recaps, where I go into detailed breakdowns of episodes of Sex and the City. I got lots more coming out, so check that out. Again, I had that video breaking down Tom Bauer's book if you want to see more Meghan Markle content. Otherwise, I have lots of Amber Heard stuff. You guys, the hits just keep on coming. If you missed the last video, I did get a new sound system. So again, a huge thank you to everybody who supported the channel. I really appreciate it. It's because of you and your comments and your thumbs up and being subscribed and your hitting the thanks button that I was able to do that. So a huge thank you for that, guys. That's it for me. If If you have a topic you want to see a deep dive on, let me know in the comments. Take care. Stay healthy. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.